But I'd now love to introduce our speaker, Ruth. So Ruth is based in Aotearoa, New Zealand. She is a digital strategist and an information architect and a UX researcher. She loves to solve large-scale digital content and UX challenges, helping clients work out what to create to meet their goals. And she's worked with a lot of quite well-known organisations like Qantas, Atlassian, the Australian Museum, Virgin Mobile, and all levels of. I'm actually reading Elle's. I'm reading Elle Garrity's description. I'm just realising. Yes, Ruth, but a lot of that's also true of Ruth, but probably not the clients.
I worked with Air New Zealand, and I was like,
yeah. It's like
substituted one national airline for another.
Sorry about that, Ruth. I just forgot to cut and paste the right thing into my notes. Anyway, yes, Ruth can tell you a bit about herself. But she is a fantastic sort of UX and content sort of strategist working in New Zealand, and she's here to talk to us about getting our content ready for AI, which is clearly a topic that a lot of people are super interested in. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over not to Elle Garrity, but to Ruth Hendry. So take it away, Ruth.
Thanks, Angus. I'll just share my screen and make sure it works. Great. I'm going to assume that everyone can see that. Kia ora koutou. Yeah, thanks, Angus. Thanks so much for having me along today. It's lovely to see some familiar faces online, including a few people I've already seen online today because it's 11 a.m. in New Zealand. As Angus said, my name's Ruth. I'm a content strategist and information architect based in Te Whanganui-a-Tara, which is Wellington, Aotearoa, New Zealand. It's 11 a.m. here, so we are just about maybe all wide awake. But for all of you in Australia, thanks for joining us so early. I do really appreciate it. Also, thank you for the lovely team at Weave for having me along today to talk about what is absolutely very much a hot topic for my clients at the moment, and I can imagine it is for lots of you as well. So what we're going to cover today is why it's not necessarily the time for an expensive digital product upgrade, and why organizations should focus on their content instead. And also what getting your content ready for AI means, which is how you write, how people write about you, and how you structure your content to future-proof it. I think this is probably going to be about 25 minutes, so we definitely will have time for questions at the end. Before we get into it though, a quick check-in for me, because it's super great for me to understand where you're all at. So if you're comfortable, could you post in the comments and share where you're at with getting your content AI ready? Like, how do you feel about it? Are you an expert? Maybe all your content is optimized already, in which case you could definitely teach all of us a thing or two. Maybe you're experimenting and trialing a few things. Maybe you're completely new to it or something else. So if you're comfortable, could you drop something in the comments for me? Oh, I love embracing and going with the flow of things. I feel like that's very much where I am at the moment as well. Lots of people who are new and lots of people who are experimenting and learning. I think we're all learning in this space, which is actually quite nice in a way, right? It's quite a leveler to bring everyone back to a place where you're starting from scratch again. Awesome. That's great. Thanks for sharing that, everyone. It feels like we do have a lot of learners and experimenters in the group, which is very much where most of us have been for the past year, right? Because it's so new to everyone. So before we get into it, this is my extremely grumpy face because I was frowning because I realized I can't possibly cover all the things about AI in 30 minutes. And there are some really big considerations that I'm not covering here. Those big conversations about AI are really worth having. So who holds the power when it comes to those AI tools, the environmental impact, the inherent biases? It would be awesome if we can have those conversations in parallel, and we should. But those big issues don't negate the fact that people we're creating content for already are using AI tools. And to do our jobs well, we need to move to where those people are. The other thing I was considering when I was writing this is that we don't really have a huge amount of case studies at the moment. And I like data and evidence, so that does give me pause for thought. But our organizations are moving quite quickly in this space, so there will be data published soon. And we've already got initial GEO tools out there, and they'll continue to improve over time. So who knows, once we have a bit more data, maybe some of this presentation might need to change. But where we're at now is we can infer what good content and content operations looks like from what we know about how those common AI tools are built and also how they work. Finally, it really does focus on designing content to be easily consumed by third-party AI systems. So the ones we're all familiar with, like Claude, ChatGPT, Copilot, and others as well. But we do know that it's likely businesses will need to reimagine their business models for a future where AI agents are the primary interface to customers. And so really optimizing your content is just the first part of that, and you need to focus on business model change later. But having said that, as everyone on this call knows, optimizing content is a necessary first step, and it's something organizations often need a lot of help with. So any content optimization should definitely be done in parallel with any work that focuses on those agent to customer interactions and any other AI technologies too. Like I was saying, we will have time for questions afterwards, and there's a load of value in conversation in this space, so I would love to hear your thoughts. So, given all of those quite large caveats that we haven't got time to cover today, why should we care about optimizing content for AI? Because our job is to give people the information they need when they need it, meeting them wherever they might be online or offline. And so sometimes this information might be quite prosaic or it might be fun, like maybe helping people get a beautiful new pair of shoes or something like that. Sometimes it might be important info, like helping people get a passport. But sometimes that information is life changing, and that might be, we had Julian on the call from Vic Uni earlier, that might be choosing the right university, or it might be getting access to life saving health info too. And this has always been our job as content folks, but the future is definitely not the same as the past. People are increasingly going to those AI tools for this critical information. And we are in a place now where we have to optimize for these tools to give people the right information in the right way at the right time. It's non-negotiable now in terms of us doing our jobs. And the other part of it is, as well as it being all of our jobs to give people the information they need, it is also my literal job. So as Angus mentioned earlier, I run a content strategy business, the success of which depends on me giving good advice to my clients. And I care about my clients a lot, and I care about everyone in their teams as well. So this means helping them to understand when the right time is for them to carry out a technical project and when it's a better choice for them to fix their content instead. So I want them to succeed, and getting their content AI ready puts these organizations in the best place to do that. So when I'm painting a picture for my clients, maybe of what tomorrow might look like, or even actually probably this afternoon, it's definitely the near future rather than in the distance. Here are some of the things I tell them. I tell them about AI first user journeys, increasingly through voice. I've seen figures actually suggesting anywhere between a 1% to a 64% drop in traffic to sites, depending on what the type of site is, due to AI tools. Although I have to say Google disputes this. So this is one of the reasons I'm looking forward to getting some more concrete data in future. I suspect Google's going to continue to dispute this until it can own that share of the market again. I also tell them about real-time, dynamic, contextual content assembly of personalized information. So the image I put on here shows Google's new AI mode in Google search. And what it's doing is assembling that relevant personalized info based on things like location or past searches and agentic capabilities too. And this is the bit that's really exciting for me because selfishly, I'm looking forward to getting the information I want. I'm looking forward to it being contextualized for me. I don't want to dig through what the most important stakeholder thinks is useful information to present. Obviously, hopefully we will be getting that info without wading through a load of sponsored Google chat anymore, although I imagine maybe sponsored content and advertorial is coming to AI too. But on the downside, obviously, there's the potential homogenization of content where everything starts to sound very similar, which is the AI slop that we're already seeing. And there's also the loss of discovery from serendipitous browsing. And I think Kate, who might be on the call, said was one of her favorite things about the early internet. And that's true. those kind of AI tools do mean we don't get that serendipitous discovery that we got earlier. And then finally, obviously within the absence of interface, there's no visual cues that give us trustworthiness or authority. So there's likely going to be the need for credentials or trusted content markers. And all of these points, both the good and bad bits of the future, involve content, and that is happily where we all come in. I've had a few clients come to me lately where they're updating a website CMS or a knowledge base or an app in the same way they've done previously. And we've all seen this before. Sometimes it's a lift and shift with a bit of content thinking on top. Sometimes it might be a rework of the content, but it's still in quite a standard CMS. This is not going to serve people well in future. So to be clear, when I say pause your tech project, what I mean is things like a website or a knowledge base or an app replatform, rather than a project that's maybe exploring something novel, like creating or using AI tools for customers, or maybe internal teams too. Having said that, all those novel projects do require content thinking as well. But in case you're looking to persuade your stakeholders about why they should pause a website or an app replatform, here are some of the reasons I've been telling the people I speak to. Optimizing your content for AI saves you money, and this is what a lot of businesses and stakeholders care about. Optimizing your content for AI tools optimizes it for humans right now too, and we can already see that through the potentially significant decline in search traffic that lots of sites are experiencing. That is absolutely an immediate return on investment for businesses. Also, if organizations do plow ahead regardless with their tech projects without focusing on the content, it's likely they'll have to, at best, retrofit their content into their new systems. Or they'll have to redo all of the expensive project in its entirety in a year or two when they realize that whatever their shiny new website, knowledge base, app, whatever it is, it doesn't work for the new AI world. And that's short-term tech-first thinking rather than taking a clear-headed look about what would give them the best value for money in the long term. And I know that these are quite difficult decisions for people to make, and they can feel quite scary. And that's where it comes into for our jobs, is to help them be reassured and take them on that journey. That's because, in part, replatforming or retrofitting content is really expensive. People often underestimate how expensive it can be, and the benefits do need to be carefully considered. I think we're all experiencing that uncertainty about the technical future, and the technical future is uncertain at the moment. The only certainty is that the content itself matters, no matter what those delivery tools are. The other thing I've been explaining to some of my clients, and this is kind of a repositioning of what content can be, whether this is your vibe or not will very much depend on how you like to position content within your organization. But content is infrastructure where AI is involved. It is the foundation that all of these automated systems build upon, and it is just as important as APIs, databases, pipelines, all of the things that we usually think of as digital infrastructure. If we don't get this content infrastructure right, the content won't be easily found, you can't share it, you can't communicate it with AI tools. So designing the content in a way that works for humans and AI is essential. Although probably all a bit bored of the phrase garbage in, garbage out, it is a bit of a truism. We'll all have seen it repeated around the internet, but it is true for a reason. And treating content as infrastructure really is essential for organizations to succeed in the age of AI. And then finally, I have quite a lot of risk-averse clients, so this sometimes is a thing that resonates with them quite well. If we're thinking of content as infrastructure, one of the things I like to do is take the infrastructure jargon as well. And in cybersecurity, a blast radius is the potential impact of a security breach on an organization. There's also the blast radius now of poor content, and that becomes so much larger with AI. If you've got inaccurate or misleading content, it can reach many, many more people, and it becomes much more difficult for you to catch and correct. So a single error in your source content or in the content that other people are talking about you, that can be reproduced across thousands of AI-generated responses, customer interactions, automated comms, all of those things, which obviously has the potential to be reputation damaging. It can reduce your sales, and it could maybe mean your audience don't understand or comply with the law. So between the likelihood of those expensive website or app projects having to be redone, and we have all seen those before, and the impact of poor content, what I'm doing is encouraging people to fix their content before they fix their tech. And everyone, I suspect everyone on this call is already doing this, being deliberate and thoughtful in our content design to enable AI tools to really fulfill their promise of being helpful, useful, and potentially interesting, which is what all of us want. It's better for businesses and it's better for us as consumers. So, getting into the heart of what AI content, ready content is, it really means positioning your business as a trusted source that AI systems will prioritize. And there are three main parts to it. There's how you write, which is, I've taken to actually describing it as what large language models like. And this is because it seems to be more objective for some stakeholders. It removes the kind of ostensibly subjective perspective of what good, in inverted commas, content looks like, and it reframes it as a technical decision. Whether you choose that framing or not depends on what your organization responds well to. I often find that I'm in the business of half of it is the business of persuasion, and the other half of it is the business of content strategy. So I just have to choose the thing that resonates with clients and roll with it. There's also how people write about you becomes increasingly critical when it comes to AI tools, and there's how your content is structured. So let's start with the easy one, which is how you write, aka what large language models like. As David Byrne sang, it is the same as it ever was. Good content for AI is good content for humans, which means that all the same rules of content design still apply. That's reassuring, right? Certainly reassuring for me, because from a content writing perspective, not much has actually fundamentally changed. And gloriously, it means that everyone on this call are the ones with the skills to help organizations succeed. Because the fundamentals of good content design haven't changed, I'm not going to go into them in depth here because I imagine most of you are really well across these, but I will call out a few of the most important ones. So what do large language models want? And I mean, I realize that we're pleasing the AI overlords, but we have had 2 decades of pleasing the Google overlords now, so we're just switching our allegiances for the next decade or so. Large language models want you to have a clear purpose or intent for your content. So that means that understanding your audience is still the key, which again is something that everyone on this call has the skills in doing. You need to know what people are looking for so that you can create very valuable, well-structured content that really clearly and obviously addresses the questions or needs that people have. We do have limited GEO data at the moment, which is a bit of a shame, but that is definitely coming. There are some organizations globally who are building these GEO tools. So in the meantime, I've been using things like Search Console, organic traffic data, keyword research data. People also ask, all of the things that you might do for optimizing for search. Also testing how content currently performs in AI tools is really important. In Aotearoa, both Data Story and Lana Gibson are really good in this emerging GEO space if you're looking for any other insights and tips. So one of the other things LLMs also like is natural language, which I am delighted about because I love natural language with my very Yorkshire accent. But user search queries using AI are longer. They tend to have more of a conversational tone, which we've probably all experienced when we're playing around with it. And they've got a lot more context compared to what is actually starting to look like quite an abrupt Google search. So Google searches tend to average about 4 words. So if we're writing in very natural conversational language, mirroring how people actually speak or ask questions, then it makes it easier for LLMs to match our content to a user's search query. I guess using the language that your audience use probably always has had the greatest impact on traditional search as well. So I am pleased that it still plays quite a large role in AI retrieval. One thing to note though is that don't rely on AI tools doing semantic matching, although they can, and it's clearly a thing that they're particularly good at. We do still need to make it easy for them to match our content to the user's query without errors. Their utility at semantic matching kind of comes into play in other ways. Obviously and happily, LLMs still like scannable content. Hooray for that. So bullet points, numbered lists, clear headings, short paragraphs, they all make it easier for humans and AI to process and extract the relevant details. Also, LLMs like logical content, as do I as a highly organized person. So that means organizing your content with a logical hierarchy. Single focus headings, single focus sections, make it easier for AI tools to understand and categorize you and your content. The descriptive headings are the heading tags that you all put in already, still act as good signposts through your content for both humans and machines. The other thing that is really helpful is considering where your content fits in the information architecture, because LLMs increasingly understand content relationships. So if you put your page meaningfully and sensibly within a wider site or a wider structure, and again, this is where metadata is really important, that's also useful for LLMs. Okay, answer focused content, always a hot topic at the moment. LLMs do like answer focused content, and I should add that humans like answers as well, because we are designed to seek the answers to our questions. Remember, we're matching content to a user's intent or query. So that means structuring your content to directly answer people's questions. So lead with the most important information, use the inverted pyramid structure, all of that is stuff you know. Details and data can add nuance and they can add depth and the appearance of reliability. I'm going to say the appearance of reliability because we all put in accurate data, details and nuance. I suspect some organizations are less considered around that. But they give the appearance of reliability without overwhelming the human reader. I want to be really clear here that being answer focused does not necessarily mean using FAQs. I have to say, I'm also quite bored of this discussion, but you don't have to use FAQs. Sometimes FAQs make sense. For example, Air New Zealand has got an FAQ section that works really well, and it works really well for them in traditional search. Things like help sections on SaaS products, that also works really well. But often FAQs don't work well when they duplicate your content out of context. Be sensible, be pragmatic, focus on the important issues. Choose the approach that's right for your human readers, making sure you use sensible, answer-focused headings. They don't have to be a question. They can reframe it as a statement. And the headings need to stand alone, and make sure the paragraphs can stand alone or make sense when they're combined with other content via AI tools too. So choose the approach that works best for the machines and your human readers. And then finally, like humans, LLMs get stuck on duplication and inconsistency. We don't like it. The tools don't like it. We don't like it either. They like clear, consistent, and current content. So things that are the same should be written consistently, not in slightly different ways. And that can be particularly difficult sometimes with government information. You want really clearly written content that's easy to understand for humans and AI. So not something like that says, if this, then that, not this, but not that, and not for them, but maybe for you. That is very difficult for everyone to parse. Ideally, use clear, concise language for key points that you can use for AI summaries too. The other thing that's really helpful is making it clear how current and up-to-date your content is. That makes it useful. And where possible, citing your sources because it makes your content seem more trustworthy and more reliable as well. A lot of that, I imagine, was probably things you already know, but how good is it that what's good for AI is good for humans? That is deeply reassuring in lots of ways. The second part of getting your content ready for AI is how people write about you, which again is increasingly important. And I think broadly that's a good thing, right? It puts more influence in the hands of the public and in disparate sources rather than you as an organization retaining that. As AI tools, they are drawing from lots of sources. Any positive mention from an authoritative source increases your organization's what's called topical authority. So these disparate sources give AI tools a deeper pool of relevant information to draw on. So for example, this is a screenshot from what I was recently looking for, which was family-friendly restaurants in Wellington. And Claude had cited some review sites along with quite a few other sources, all of which contribute to a given restaurant appearing in that as a response to my query. Generating topical authority can mean quite a few things. It can mean positive reviews. It can also mean building credibility through things like earned, specifically not paid media. It can mean other people's blogs. It can mean LinkedIn, Reddit, social, content on other reputable websites. It doesn't feel like branding and marketing is going away anywhere anytime soon. It just feels like it's getting a lot more subtle. So this is a graph from Statista. I think it was June 2025. showing that Reddit was the most cited web domain by LLMs, which is something they put down to the agreement that Google have with Reddit for training their models. So Reddit may be a bit of an exception in this case, but you can also see that Wikipedia, LinkedIn, Facebook, and others rank highly in terms of being well-cited web domains. So positive, accurate mentions on all of these channels help to establish your organization's credibility. There's a PR organization called Heft, again based in Wellington, Aotearoa, and Emily Macri-Broadmoor at Heft describes it, I think, quite well when she says GEO commands something more valuable, far more valuable than SEO, which is authoritative presence in the digital world, ideally with this third-party validation rather than your own channels. And this combining of inputs from a variety of credible sources is one of the many, many reasons AI can be so much more valuable than organic search for us for surfacing helpful, relevant information. So those positive mentions and your increased credibility are gold, and they're definitely gold for us as consumers of that information. But all the times people really misconstrue or misrepresent your content become incredibly damaging, like much more damaging than they are now. So, for example, I searched for support for my dyslexic child recently, and not all of the sources were official government advice. Some of them were out of date. Actually, became then much more difficult for me to sift through to find what was the most useful piece of information. So, what's the impact on people if your service or project is described inaccurately on other sites and it starts to pull through to AI tools as well? That's a really hard problem to solve. That's probably one of the hardest problems here. But creating good content yourself is the best place to start. So clear, concise, accurate, not duplicated, up to date. That makes it much more likely that all of these third parties are also going to talk about you accurately. If, as I mentioned earlier, that then content is infrastructure, the way you build it now becomes really critical. It is absolutely about constructing content now as well as writing it. So I'm sure most of you are familiar with structured or modular content. I know Angus is extremely familiar with it. Just in case, just to get us all on the same page really about what I mean by structured or modular content. It's information that's organized into discrete, reusable components. They make sense independently rather than created as one continuous piece. Each module or chunk serves a specific purpose and can be recombined, rearranged, or repurposed across different contexts. And now that context is AI, and it is the best recombiner of bits of information, really, we have ever seen. And I'm delighted that we might finally be able to push for structured content with AI as a lever to do so. So structured content is semantic. It contains meaning, and that's a critical piece of this. So that was from Carrie Hayne in one of her articles recently. She goes on to point out that structured content isn't widespread and most content is still unstructured. So that is really the big opportunity for us and for organizations, is to put the effort into structuring the content. So just let me give you a few examples of structured content so we're all clear about what it is. It can be as simple as a title, author, or a date or a short description on a blog post, all attached to the way that content's presented. It could be information that's maybe held in a reusable component block in a CMS, like this contact component that's associated with its visual presentation. It could be information like this, which is related to a university qualification, which is housed in a database and called by an API. So that information exists independent of any presentation layer, can be used across various channels. It might be things like events information. There's different types of data or information here. Again, it's independent of the presentation layer and it's used in various different places. Or it could be discrete chunks of content designed to be used and recombined in different ways on different channels. And that is completely independent of the presentation layer. This is an example from the NHS in the UK. It's an oldie but a goodie. I've got a lot of time for the NHS and all they do. And I think they did a really good job with this originally. So the NHS produces shorter, specific sections of content, what they call modules, from their pages so that they, and also other organisations, can combine them in different ways on different channels, depending on what would best serve the users. It means that the NHS and also other organisations can show people the content that's most relevant to them on the channel that works best. Taking a structured content approach like this, where we're thinking of content as discrete chunks of data that can be recombined independent of the presentation layer, which is exactly what AI tools do, this is what sets us all up best for AI success. So I realized that was a bit of a structured content 101. And in part, that's so we can all get on the same page about what structured content is. And in part, that's because it's what I spend a lot of time explaining to people now, is why we should structure our content really well and sensibly in order that AI tools can best use it later. And the reason structured content is better for AI tools is because it's consistent. So similar content types follow standardized formats and templates that can really be easily drawn on by AI. It is reusable, highly, highly reusable. So content types can be mixed and matched for different audiences or tools or purposes. You don't have to recreate the content. In theory, it reduces the errors as well, at least in the source content, because as an organization, you don't need to duplicate the content, meaning it reduces your chance of errors. And well-structured content with clear context and metadata becomes much more valuable when AI systems need to pull that really specific, accurate information to answer people's queries. So if you structured your content poorly in the source, that leads to incorrect or irrelevant responses later. It's obviously much more scalable, and you can add new content as an organization systematically and easily update or maintain the existing content. And it allows you to personalize at scale. So AI, both you as an organization and those AI tools can automatically customize information for different audiences or skill levels or use cases without human intervention. Happily, these benefits are true regardless of whether you're creating structured content for AI tools or for reuse within your own organization. So the benefit is really large. Structured content is essentially future-proof content. You can do some kind of structured content probably within most CMSs now. Think of things like tagging blogs or events or addresses or putting something in the markup that shows something as a price. Any kind of structure or semantic markup or schema would help improve your content. And this helps it be more easily recombined and used by AI tools. But the future is absolutely truly structured content where we really separate the content from the presentation layer. So this means storing the core information separately from how it's displayed, which still feels like a large job for lots of organizations. But that's what helps the same content feed websites, chatbots, voice assistants, AI tools, or all those future interfaces my tiny mind can't even imagine right now. And I know that lots of you will be working on this already, which is really exciting. It's really exciting to see what this is going to look like. I wanted to end on a positive note as well. Like everyone in this call, you have absolutely got this. The fundamentals of writing good content have not changed. Good content for humans is good content for AI. All of you excellent content designers and strategists have the skills organizations need to support them with this technology. You are valuable. And there are lots of things you can do to start getting your content AI ready already. So what you need to do might vary depending on where you are, but often what I need to do for my projects, because I tend to work in a project-based way, is to get all the information I need to have conversations with stakeholders. And I've been experimenting with using AI to help with these conversations too. So that includes things like auditing and testing how well current content performs for AI, which does include the code and any data schema. So can your AI tool identify the primary intent of your content? Is it replicable across various tools? Do the tools interpret and use your content consistently? Are there potential gaps that you could address? How useful is the structure of the content and the metadata? You can also take a look at whether other organizations are talking about similar topics or about your content, where you can add value, where you might need to correct them. What is the sentiment like in the market, for example? How well is your brand performing? You can also use tools to understand and monitor how well your content performs in AI search features and AI citations. Those tools are still relatively new, so they're still evolving, but I imagine they're going to get better over time. So all of those things can help you get those conversations with stakeholders started. But absolutely, the biggest thing we all need to champion is that content is infrastructure now. The way we build it or construct it is crucial. And we're the people who know how to do this, right? We're the people who build that content with meaning and value, no matter how it's presented. So that was my spiel now to persuade you that content is infrastructure and help you persuade all of your stakeholders too. But over to you. It is a super big, fast moving topic. I'd love to hear your thoughts, questions, reckons.
Wow, thanks so much, Ruth. We've had a lot of really enthusiastic comments. A lot of what you've said has been resonating with lots of people. I think the idea of content as infrastructure is a huge light bulb moment for a lot of us. Especially just thinking about it in terms of, so much of what we do is trying to argue for the value of content, and we're so often going up against a brick wall when we try to do that, and we'll sort of say things like, "Oh, content is your most important asset," or content is what people are really coming to you for, and those kinds of ways of framing it so often fall flat. So the idea of content as infrastructure, and the blast radius is another, just a fantastic analogy for something we all know, is we all kind of recognise but haven't had a word, haven't had a good way of explaining it. Yes, a lot of fantastic responses to the talk. So I'm just trying to pick through for some actual questions. There was a bit of a discussion about FAQs. So I'm interested. I know you said you were bored with the topic, and so am I, to be honest. But I think. I feel like when we teach content design, we often say, FAQs are bad, don't do FAQs. And I think there's almost two things we've conflated there. There's the idea of the big dumping ground for all your FAQs, the FAQs sort of section of the website, which I think we can all agree is, in especially in the way that it's often been done, isn't great. But then there's also just the question and answer format for content. And what we usually say about that is that it's usually good to avoid it because of the need to front load headings. So putting the most important words at the front of the heading, and it's more difficult to do that when you're phrasing your headings as questions. But I don't know if you have any thoughts about that. Is front loading a thing for LLMs and AI? Is that yeah? How does that kind of change the conversation?
Yeah, I think that is a really great question. I also feel like it might be one where we don't actually have enough data to give a considered answer about what a year looks like compared to now. This is only my personal opinion, but I feel like we're in this hybrid land where people are still coming to your website and they're still coming to your AI tools. And if that is the case, given that the AI machines are smart and they've got endless amounts of time and can scan data really quickly, I would be writing for your human reader on your website primarily, because AI tools are designed to do that semantic matching, like I was saying. So this is the approach I'm taking anyway. I say writing your headings as statements, front loading them, making sure they stand alone, making sure the paragraph stands alone. That gives an AI tool enough context at this point in time to derive an answer to the question that a user has put into it. But I do think there are times when FAQs are useful, like I was saying, for SaaS products, or sometimes if you're a website like Air New Zealand, where people just come and ask you one question. I do think that generally, controversial take in an already controversial AI topic, but generally we need to be quite pragmatic, and by kind of resolutely holding on to one stance is not what gets content a seat at the table for important discussions. We need to know when we give a little bit and maybe gently take people on a journey rather than planting a flag vociferously.
Well, as somebody who's been known to stand up for PDFs, I totally agree with. I'm totally a fan of questioning our sacred cows. Thanks, Ruth. Sophia has a hand up. Welcome, Sophia. Would you like to take yourself off mute?
Am I unmuted? Hello?
You're unmuted. Hi.
Hi. Hi, Angus. Hi, Ruth. My question is on structured content, of course. So what I am running into is like, yes, we want to structure the content, but then when you feed it in, whether you're refining, for me, the experiments I'm running is just trying to create custom GPTs with the structured content to see like how is it actually reading my structured content and what works and what doesn't work. But what I'm running into is prompting around or like refining the custom GPT on how to use the different attributes. Like, for example, like I might have like a quote database and quotes like do not change this. Like this is like somebody's quote, right? So like to be able to say like don't get creative here, but like here's where you can get creative and like this is what all of these columns in the database are. This is what all these attributes actually are and I don't really have a best practice. Have you run into that on actually like how to use the attributes?
Oh, that is a great question. I don't have a best practice on that. I'm really sorry, but that is one of the really difficult things when you're structuring your content for something like Claude or ChatGPT as well, is how can you give enough context around the bit of structured content that persuades a tool not to contextualize it unnecessarily or maybe put in their own words. I'm really sorry. I think that is a great question, but I don't have a good answer for it. Maybe someone else on the call does. That would be great.
I mean,
It
we've
feels
seen.
like
Sorry, go Sophie.
I was just gonna say it feels like something that should be in the interface, right? Like that you can upload structured content and then be able to define. Because if I just do it like in the instructions, like I don't know, I don't quite trust it. I don't feel like it really understands like which database I'm talking about and which attributes in this database. Like, do not do this over here, and here's where I want you to play and where I don't want you to play. It feels like that could be in the interface to kind of. Anyways, sorry, Angus, what were you gonna say?
Oh no, that's I think there's that kind of wider question of context of how AI is interpreting our content, and it kind of plays into what Sushumna was saying about the Americanness of AI and the fact that AI, even when she was creating a tool for people to learn Aussie slang, and even the interface of the tool ended up having an American accent because that's just what there's such a sort of a bias there. But I was also thinking of an example of some content we were working on recently where having the technical definition of the word company is very important to this content. But for most people, people out there in the world, company is pretty much just a synonym for business, and that's how people use the two things as synonyms. It's very, very important for the content we were working on for them not to be synonyms. But how do we kind of communicate that to AI? How do we sort of flag whether it's certain attributes or certain individual terms or certain things? How do we tell AI, hey, we're Australian, we're actually in winter now, not summer? All that kind of contextual communication that isn't part of our explicit content, but relies on, in the past, we've relied on people reading the content with more context. And we just can't rely on that anymore, can we? So yeah, it's a big it's a
Yeah,
big issue.
there's pros and cons to that, right, as well, because even when we rely on our human readers to have context, not all of them do have that context.
That's
and
right.
We're trying to account for all those people too. I wonder if eventually it will come to something where we can kind of highlight to AI tools and LLMs in the content in the database schema, like Sophia was saying, these are what you can play with. This is what we specifically mean. It's a bit like shadow SEO in the old days, or maybe eventually the tools will get sophisticated enough that they can pass that context for themselves. We're definitely at the real start of this, though, which makes it really hard to predict.
Yep. Question from Teresa: Do LLMs always recheck content each time, or just rehash stuff it's already learned?
Do they recheck? Yeah, so they go to the web and they crawl it now. So you can see Claude doing that. What I would recommend you do is you ask Claude a question, then you say, please cite your sources, and it will go, oh my goodness me, I just rehashed what I was already told last year. Now I'm going to go and check your sources for you. And it will, if you prompt it to, go and recheck the web. but it is also using, just my understanding at least, the information that it has already been trained on.
Yep. Great. Question from Aidan. Be interested in people's thoughts on how to do structured content when there are contextual dependencies, like the symptoms of pancreatic cancer differ between genders or age groups. There definitely are ways of capturing that sort of nuance in structured content. I guess the question is, will the LLMs also capture that nuance?
That's a great question. What Google is positioning itself now is as a tool that can capture that context. Google is probably uniquely positioned to use marketing slang to do that because it knows so much about you already, particularly if you already use Gmail or any kind of Google account. So Google is saying that they can give you contextual content based on what the demographic information they have about you, your location, your past searches, all of that kind of stuff. So in theory, if you as an organization have delineated your symptoms as being maybe gender specific or age specific, then Google should be able to spit out the right information for you. It doesn't feel like we're there yet on that one. And obviously that's a high risk strategy when it comes to things like medical advice. But that's Google's position at the moment, is that that's where it's moving towards.
Thanks, Ruth. Lots of good questions. I'm just going to take them in order and we'll get through as many as we get through. So apologies that we probably won't get through them all. Barvik had I think a good point about you were talking about the sort of the reputation, how other people talk about you, and the fact that the existing channels for doing that have become so kind of so compromised by sleaziness, basically. So the whole sort of guest posting and all that kind of thing, and obviously link building, all those sort of things that have become SEOified over the years. So do you have any thoughts about how you do that kind of thing, kind of organically without making it sleazy, I guess?
Yeah, without making it sleazy. It's the dark art of marketing, isn't it? To be honest, this is where I would really rely on having a good marketing team. If you yourself are not a marketer, like marketing's not my thing. I don't do marketing and PR, but there are some really great people out here in Aotearoa, New Zealand who do, either organizations or within big organizations themselves. And it's just about like, where are your audience? What do they want? Can you encourage them to talk about you? How will you get earned media, not paid media? Can you get good reviews without looking like they've just been farmed off to bots? It's really the basics of doing marketing well in a human-centered way, which I think is what the market is moving towards, particularly for younger people. And personally, I actually think that's a really great thing, right? It might mean that we can remove the sleaze from marketing and it becomes much more organic, people-driven, people-centered, giving you actual useful information. I've got my fingers crossed.
Yeah. Oh, but I love the hopefulness that you're.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
you're driving
hopefulness
us
to naivety.
Taking our head out of the oven, and I love that. So yeah, it's fantastic. Jules asked, are we in a temporary period? So about all the context stuff, are we in a temporary period where LLMs need a separate or supporting channel, such as MCP or a text file? I must admit I don't know what MCP is, Jules, but some kind of separate channel, but with increasing context window, we won't need them. So yeah, other channels, I guess, that are specifically created for LLMs. Any thoughts on that?
My guess is yes. We're in this temporary period where you need to give LLMs support in and humans actually, one way or another. You either give them the text file or you're kind of backed up by your website, and you might start on an AI tool, like often I start on Claude and then go to a website. I do think the high likelihood is that we'll be looking at direct AI agent customer interaction in the future, and that bypasses all of those other channels. And that is like a seismic shift for lots of organizations. Yep. I have to say, I'm not a developer, but my partner's sitting upstairs working on an AI tool right now, so I could have just brought him in for this Q&A bit, and maybe I should have thought about that. But yeah, I think you're right.
talk sometime. Sounds very interesting. Great question from Eva. How about video content? Does it matter? Does the format of your content matter for LLMs? How do LLMs treat video?
That's a great question. Yeah, the format of your content does seem to matter. Well, again, actually, this is an argument for increasing accessibility, right? Because if you have a transcript for your video, it is then subsequently crawlable by AI tools. And perhaps then AI becomes a lever to increase accessibility on your website. I mean, we'll take everything we can get. New Zealand isn't quite as well legislated as Australia is in this respect. So format does matter. If your content can be searched, crawled, and indexed, it can show up in AI tools at the moment. If it can't be, then it won't show up in those. I'd be interested to see in the future if maybe they will start spitting out more video content as well.
Great. And I'm going to make this the last question, but I think it's a good one to end on. And I feel like your talk already has shown us a sort of direction towards an answer to this, which is from Angelo. How can you have a best practice when the people who own AI are changing every 5 minutes?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, that's a big question in lots of ways about who holds the power of AI tools. You are right. The people who own the AI tools change, but the way that those things are built does not change. What is changing currently is like how sophisticated they are and what the outputs can be. But fundamentally, you need to consider how your content is written, how your content is constructed, and how other people are writing about you. That best practice remains true regardless of what the tool is and who owns it. I think, like I was saying in my talk, the technical future is uncertain, but the only certainty is that the content itself matters. And I feel extremely happy about this, given the group of people that I'm currently speaking to.
What a wonderful note to end on. So apologies if we didn't get to your question, but it's been a fantastic, obviously a fantastic talk from Ruth and a fantastic discussion as well. So we will, we fortunately have the recordings that's going to go up on YouTube. I feel like this is one I want to go back and watch again because there were so many great nuggets there. But we just want to move on and give people a chance to make any announcements before we wrap up. So if you do have something you would like to announce and share with the group, feel free to just pop that into the chat. Lots of thanks for Ruth. So that's great. But anything like a job, if you have a job going at your organisation or an event that you're running, anything you'd like people to know about, please pop that in. Elle's popped the link to her meetup, in-person Sydney Content Strategy meetup. So make sure you check that out. Our next meetup is going to be on Wednesday, the 24th of September, and it's actually Lana Gibson, who Ruth mentioned in her talk, another a fellow Kiwi, on talking about Google Analytics 4 and content measurement in action. So I know that's another topic that a lot of people are going to be super interested in. We're going to be basically launching that, the sign up for that straight after this talk. So go to meetup.com and you'll be able to sign up for that one. All of our past talks are on, our past talks going back the last couple of years are on YouTube, and we'll definitely have Ruth's talk up there as well. So make sure you go to our YouTube channel, like and subscribe. At Weave, we do content training in content design. We run the courses that were created by Content Design London. We have a fundamentals course, which is the sort of introductory course actually running this week, but there are still tickets available. So if anybody happens to have Thursday and Friday free and would like to learn about content design, go to our website and you'll see the details there. We also have the Content Design in Action course running in November, and that will probably be the last one that we're running for the year. So if you are a little bit more advanced in content design and would like to take that kind of more intermediate course, then hop on that one.
Just add that Elle's put some links to her training in the chat as
fantastic.
well. So,
yes, Elle Garrity, whose name I used in vain at the beginning of the session, also runs some great training courses. So check
I've
those
also
out as
just
well.
popped in a link to the OUX certification course if anyone wants to come and join. Me and Emma were doing that in, well, now about a week actually. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
So yes, and I, as you may know, I did the certification, the OUX certification last year, and it was yeah, it was incredible. It's just solidified. You know, I've been working with structured content for many years, but it really solidified a methodology and a practice and a way of thinking about structured content from a user-focused point of view, which we often don't do. We often think about it from a very business-focused point of view. So highly recommended. Or if you're not quite ready to sign up for that course, then definitely check out some of the other resources on at aux.com. YouTube channel is We Are Content SD. So if one of my colleagues could grab the link to that and pop it in, that would be great. I think it's just youtube.com. Thanks, Emma. Yeah. So that's our time for today. So I think it's probably been our biggest meetup ever in terms of numbers, which just shows how hungry people are for knowing how AI is going to affect their content. And Ruth has given us so many fantastic sort of practical, some fantastic practical guidance, but also a sense of hope, I think, that what we're doing, the way we've been approaching content all along, is the right way. And we just need to, if anything, AI gives us more ammunition, more reason than ever to keep just hammering away at content that actually meets people's needs. So thank you everyone for being here. Thanks again to Ruth, and we'll see you next month.
Thanks, Angus. Kia kite, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
So nice to see everyone. Bye.